breakout rooms just yet. Everybody will just be here for the presentation. Now, let's make a start then, since it's like 5 past already. So hi everybody, welcome to Student Outreach Sarawak's Pre-Uni Workshop. My name is Joanna and I'll be your host for today. Now it's an exciting event today because we're doing it virtually. We actually have people from all across Sarawak that are joining us here today. I saw on the response sheet, we've got people from Miris, SMK St. Joseph, we've got people from Cebu, SMK St. Teresa, we've also got people from Kuching, SMK Kuching High, and so many, Green Road as well. And we even have people that are outside of Miri, Kuching and Cebu. So I guess it's an upside that we can do things online right now, that we can sort of have a wider reach as well. So now the aim of today's workshop is to give a brief overview of the 5 pre-uni courses that are most commonly chosen by students. And hopefully by the end of today's session, you will have learned something about each course, and from there you'll be able to compare all these courses and see which course is right for you. Now, just a brief overview of our agenda for today. We will start with a presentation, which should last until around 4:25 p.m. And then we'll have a quick 5-minute break. And when we come back from the break, we will jump straight into the Q&A session. Before we begin, just a few announcements. The first being, we encourage all of the participants here now to stay throughout the presentation if you can, so that you have a better idea of the content, so that you can ask questions later on. But if you really need to go and you can't sit through the whole presentation, we understand as well, and we've gotten quite a few questions about this. This session will be recorded, and the recording will be posted to our Facebook page in a few days. Second thing is regarding your audio and your video. You have noticed that you are disabled from turning on your video, not because we don't want to see your face, but because we want to try to minimize the lag and potentially Zoom crashing on us. So yeah, your video is disabled for now, and you will have noticed as well that you can't unmute yourself because we don't want any background noise throughout the presentation. But we will enable these functions after the presentation. So when you do actually go into your breakout rooms, you will be able to turn on your video and use your microphone. Third thing on the list is, if you do have any questions, I'm going to ask you for a little favor, which is to save your questions to the end and try not to put things in the chat throughout the presentation. We will not be answering any questions throughout the presentation, and all of that will be left until the Q&A session. And before we begin with our presentation, I'd like to remind everybody that you don't have to frantically take down notes. You don't have to try to copy everything down on the slides. Because if you sign up through the Google form, you've given us your email address and your WhatsApp number, we will be sending the slides and any other resources through to you in the next few days. So, and we'll also make everything available through Facebook. Just give us a few days to sort of put everything together before we actually send it out to you guys. Now, without further ado, we will start off today's presentation with Andy, Nazmi, and Jermaine to talk to us about A-levels.
All right, thank you, Joanna. I hope everyone can hear me. If there's any issue with my audio, please just raise in the chat box, or you can tell. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Nazmi, and alongside my 2 friends, Andy and Jermaine, for the next 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to present about the A-level pre-university course. All right, so let's jump straight into it. Okay, so in my part, I'm going to explain to you the brief background about what A-level is. And I'll be talking about the duration, the subjects offered, the minimum requirements, and also if there is any coursework. Okay, so you might be asking, what is A-level? Now, for this presentation and all of the pre-university courses, I want to stress that pre-university course is a program before you do your degree. Now, this is important because if you want to explain to people or your relatives and stuff like that, you need to know that this is a pre-university course that you study for about 15 to 24 months before you start your degree. And also it's important to know that all of these pre-university courses are equivalent to each other, meaning that you study about the same things so that it's important to know so that you can ask your friends from different courses, and also so that you don't feel like you are not in uni yet, because actually all of you aren't, but you're just in the transition between your secondary and your tertiary education. All right, so A-levels is widely recognized internationally, for example, in the UK, US, Australia, Singapore, and Canada. So this is one of the benefits of A-levels, meaning to say that you can use your A-levels, the certificate that you get, to go to many universities. It opens the doors to many countries overseas. Now, not just in these countries mentioned. If you can go to the next slide, please. You can see that there's actually a lot of other countries that you can go to, such as from UK to Netherlands, Germany, Hong Kong, Ireland, Switzerland. But the most common ones that people go to are UK, US, Canada, and Australia. So, yep, previous slide, sorry. The first one. Okay, so A-levels is also based on the UK education system, and we have two exam boards for this. We have the Cambridge International and the edXL. So later on, if you do take up A-levels, you will probably go into one of these, use one of either two exam boards. Okay, so A-levels is also an exam-oriented course, meaning that exams are very important. You don't have coursework, and you need to focus on getting the best grades you can when you do your exams. And also A-levels has means that you take 3 to 4 subjects which you study, and you study them in depth. So here's the good thing about A-levels: you don't have as many subjects as you do like in STPM or IGCSEs. You only have about 4, or the maximum sometimes people take 5, but you study them in depth. So the content that you will cover is actually pretty deep as well. Okay, next slide, please. The next slide. Okay, so the duration intake is, as I stated earlier, is generally 1.5 to 2 years. So keep that in mind, because some of you might want to complete your pre-uni early, or some of you don't mind if it takes a little longer. So for example, if you go into the August intake this year, you will end in 2023. So keep that in mind. And also I want to point your attention to intake, because intake is, there are different months that you can enter for A-level. And the most common ones are January, April, July, and August. So the most common ones are January and August, meaning to say that the difference is that between all these intakes, you'll end at the same time, but it's just that you start at different times. So if you're a January intake, that means you have to go through A-levels in 1.5 years, which is shorter than the August intake. Meaning in the August intake, you actually take it the year before. So I'm not sure if it makes sense now, but you can ask later. Okay, so is 18-month course harder than 24-month? Yes, it is, because it's much shorter. So you have to cram in a lot of study, and you have to do a lot of exams in a short period of time. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the subjects that you will learn. In A-levels, it's actually quite a broad range of subjects you can study, but it mainly depends on the degree that you want to take. So for example, I'm doing engineering. So the subjects that I take are maths, further maths, physics, and chemistry. So as you can see in this table, these are the essential ones that you have to take. Meaning that these are the subjects that are required by universities if you want to pursue that degree. Recommended is the ones that you can choose to take, because you can either take 3 or 4 subjects, but mandatory at least 3. Okay, next slide, please. So the minimum requirements, I'm pretty sure most of you won't have any problems with this. You generally need 5 Cs in SPM or 5 passes in IGCSEs. But it's also important to note that actually A-levels really depend on the college that you go to, because the college experience is what makes up your A-level experience. A-level at its core is just studying 4 subjects and doing the exams. So basically colleges also have different entry requirements. Some include Bs in English, some just state the number of As and Bs that you need to get. So yeah, this is just some of the data that I got. Okay, so coursework, no, there is no coursework, except for an optional coursework which you can do, which is called the EPQ. So you can ask me later on about this. It's just a little bit of an extra thing. And lastly, I want to stress on why it's not exactly 100% exam based, because you can't mess up your trials, right? Even though people say that it's 100% exam based, you can't mess up your class tests or trials, because you need to do well in your predicted grades, because you use your predicted grades to apply to university. Meaning to say, when you apply to uni, you actually haven't completed your A-levels. You're still doing it. So you apply to uni with your predicted grades. So that's just one important thing to take into consideration. So with that, I'll pass on to Andy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andy Mayer. I'll just introduce myself real quick. So A-levels. A-levels usually have about 2 types of exams per year, split into either if you take a 2-year course or 1.5. It's usually like, especially in the 1.5 is usually start, but we could talk about that in the Q&A. It's split into the AS level and A2 level. And essentially both AS and A2 have kind of like the different modular parts that makes up their thing. And the exam is usually either 2 of them per year or so, if that makes more sense. Essentially, right now, both AS and A2 would be combined to make your overall A-level marks, and that's your overall grade that you get when you want to apply for university. So a lot of these exam and modules you can pretty much see if you search up your past year papers, and you look up what part of thing, like, English literature, you just look it up online. There's your past year papers. You can see what the AS and A2 looks like and everything. All right. So one big important part I like to stress as well is the big grading system. Now, because A levels is very, very nice in the fact that you can either choose 3 or 4 subjects, and most of the time you apply it to university, you just need 3. Sometimes you want to go to the best, but you understand that you have a few subjects that you're going to do really well in, and a few subjects that you would rather get just the A instead of the A star. You know what I mean? So this is just a joke. It's about saying it's statistically easier. I think I've actually misspelled that, but I think you should keep that in mind. Now I'd like to give it to Jermaine.
Okay, hi. So fees for A levels vary very significantly. Like one of the most common places to take A levels, I think right now, is Sunway, especially. And so Sunway is a little bit cheaper than Taylor. So there's a big range. So most people take 3 or 4 subjects. If you take 3 subjects, it's generally cheaper, and the shorter the time period in which you're taking, it will be cheaper as well. So in Sunway Taylor's, we have ranged from 30K to over 40K. Taylor's is a bit more expensive. These are just some of the colleges. There are definitely a lot more colleges in Malaysia. So the cheapest college, if I'm not mistaken, is about 16K, but that doesn't offer many subjects. And so on the higher end, we have KYUM, KTJ, and like Epsom, which are much more expensive. So KYUM, which is where quite a lot of scholars end up going, and KTJ as well. So KY has about 65K to 95K, depending on the number of subjects. KYUEM offers 5 subjects, which I think you might be able to get around in other colleges as well, if you specifically ask for it. But I know that KY, like quite a number of people do 5 subjects. So that's something to keep in mind if you're interested in that. KTJ is over 190K, and Epsom is even more expensive, but Epsom is a smaller college. Okay, so yeah, moving on to the next slide. There are many advantages and disadvantages of A levels that you really need to unpack before you decide to go into it. So one of the advantages is very versatile. So for example, if you're doing a science course, what's a very typical thing to do is to take maths, biology, chemistry, physics, so that you can do basically any science course. Or some people know they like math, so they do a double math, meaning they do math, further math, and then something else. Usually it's like physics and chemistry if you're very sure you want to do a science. Or if you want to do an arts course, people generally do like math, English literature, econs, and something else, whatever you are more inclined to do. And yeah, so that is definitely a very big advantage of A level. So if you really don't know what course you want to do, that is definitely, like, A level makes a lot of sense if you don't have other constraints. Then you also have, it's very internationally recognized, as Nasmi was saying earlier. So like most universities in the world, it's as recognized as IB. And there are many subjects that are offered. So this also depends on the college that you're at. So if you're at a bigger college, generally they offer more subjects. I know KY and Sunway probably offer a lot more, but if you're at a smaller college, you can't really choose the subjects because they only do it based on the lectures that they have or based on the demand. So that's a little bit of a constraint, but there are a lot of subjects and you can choose different things that you're interested in to study in a more to study more deeply. And another thing that's very good about A levels, especially, I mean, depending on the type of person you are, is that it's very structured because it's like such an established grading system that pass your papers are really, to be honest, all you need. And maybe like a textbook for each subject, but pass your papers can like is your religion when you're doing A level. So you can really teach yourself. So if you're not comfortable with the lecturer and you don't feel like you're learning as much in class, like which some people do sometimes, you can really teach yourself that. And if you're not catching up in class, you can catch up by teaching yourself because it's so structured. Another thing is like, as Nasmi was saying, that you go so in depth in your for each subject, so it's really special. So you really understand what you're doing. But this also means that it's a lot harder because understanding needs to be deeper. And the last advantage is a disadvantage to some people. That's why it's also in the disadvantage category. But it's very it's almost entirely exam based unless you're doing like arts and graphics. Unless you're doing arts and graphics, there's basically no coursework. So it's generally a fair system because everything is graded by Cambridge. And it's not like they don't know, like the mark is fully anonymous, so they don't know who you are. And so if you don't have to worry about bias from teachers or anything, especially if you're the kind of person that comes late to college, or you don't do well in the middle of the year but you do well at the end of the year. So just keep that in mind. The disadvantage is it takes more time, not necessarily more time than every other pre-U course, but it definitely can be something that you need to keep in mind. The shortest course, there's some colleges in Malaysia that offer 15 months. So that is possible, but it's really not advisable because you have to cram so much. And the disadvantage is fully exam based. So if you screw up in both the AS exam and the A level exam, like there is no going back. You could resit it, but the idea is that it always depends on that one day. So if you're having that one bad day, or if you don't test well, it's not really the one for you. It might not be the one for you. Another disadvantage is if you're worried about money, it's pretty expensive and it's harder to enter public universities in Malaysia after taking A levels because they would prefer STPM, and you can't really and so like you need to keep that in mind if money will become a constraint or is a constraint at the moment. And a lot of subjects aren't offered by a lot of colleges because a lot of subjects are made for people in the UK. And so a lot of subjects are made for people in the UK. So there aren't a lot of lecturers in Malaysia that teach different subjects, especially because a lot of people in Malaysia tend to do science subjects or like the typical social science subjects, which is like English literature, psychology, econs, math. Yeah. Yeah, moving on to the next slide is, I think, yeah, next slide, please. No. Next slide. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so who should do A levels? So this is basically if you're the kind of person that crams well and tests well, like if you can cram at the end of the year, that's really good. And if you test well, sorry, can you move back to the previous slide? It's probably just like, yeah. So, and you don't know the coursework, or you're not good at like making deadlines like that, A levels isn't for you. And that's something I discovered for myself because I'm much better with tests than actually doing coursework on a regular basis. So that is definitely a big thing. You need to keep that in because if you don't test well, you struggle with A levels because it is just a giant test. And it's very good for people who want to go overseas. It's just a very simple pathway and it's for internationally recognized. Everyone knows what A levels is, even if you want to go into the US. So that definitely is something you want to keep in mind. If you want to stay local, I honestly think A levels did. Yeah. And you need to be the kind of person that's like disciplined enough to do a lot of past year papers by yourself because teachers can't force you to do papers because they need to actually teach you. So you need to do past year papers and a lot of them. And you just need to keep that in mind if you want to do A levels. And another thing is just the idea of versatility. If you don't know what course you want to do, then A levels makes sense. Yeah, but that is the idea of A levels. It's just about the test. If you want to do a test, A levels is it. But if you don't, then think again in case. Yeah. For the next slide, tips you want to how to sell. And yeah, it's just pass your papers. That's literally it. Like even if you don't read the textbook, it's just pass your papers. And yeah, that's enough to get you through A levels. And that is it from me. I'll pass it back to the MC. Thank you.
Just noted that the personal experiences would come in the Q&A section. You guys can just ask us all.
Yeah, because of time, we won't go through this part of the presentation, but if you want to ask more questions about A levels, you can do so in the Q&A session afterwards. So now, thank you to the A levels team. Next up, we have Afifa and Olivia to talk to us about STPM.
Okay, hello. So for today, Olivia and I will explain to all of you about the I hope all of you can hear my voice clearly. Okay, so to start off of our presentation for today, I would like to start with a brief overview about the STPM. Okay, so what is STPM actually? STPM, or their full name, Sijil Tinggi Persekolahan Malaysia, is also one of the Malaysian pre-university corps. It is run by the Malaysian Examination Council, which is they introduced a new modular format by 2012. Throughout your journey in STPM, you will be taught and guided with a more holistic approach where soft skills such as leadership, critical thinking, and communication skills are taught. Okay, move on to the next part. Okay, subjects. What are the subjects that are being offered to the STPM students? Actually, for STPM, they offer 23 different subjects to choose from Arabic language to information and communication technology. However, one person or one student only take up a maximum of 5 subjects, including the compulsory general studies, or more known as pengajian am in Malay. Normally, for the subjects, each school already have their own set of combination of subjects based on their own criteria. And then they will divide the combination of subjects into science streams and art streams. Okay, so here are the examples of the subjects that are being offered to the students who want to take STPM. For your information, the subjects that have starred in the front is actually the subjects that are being taught in Malay, while the subjects that don't have any in the front is the subjects that are being
Afifa, I think
for the science.
you are breaking up. If you could, I'm not sure if you have your video on. Maybe if you just turn your video off, maybe that would help a little bit with the connection. Yeah.
Actually, I'm already turned off my video, but is it still lagging right now?
Now it's a bit better. It's okay. You can carry on. Yep.
Okay, so I carry on with the next categories, which is social science it's okay. Social science and religious studies. For these categories, all of the subjects are being taught in Malay because they offer Islamic law, Islamic studies, history, geography, economics, business studies, and accounting. For the next category, which is science and mathematics. For this category, all of the subjects are being taught in English because they have mathematics management, mathematics technology, information and communication technology, physics, chemistry, and biology. While for the arts and sports, they only have two subjects that are being offered, and both of the subjects are being taught in Malay, which is sports science and visual science. Last but not least, general knowledge. For the general knowledge, they only have one subject, and the subject is a must subject for STPM student, which is general studies. So for the combination of subjects, um, like for the art stream, like me, I take art stream, so I took history, geography, Malay language, and general studies. So basically, each school have their own different type of combination, and then it's actually you can choose what type of subject that you're interested in. Okay, so move on to the next part. Okay, for the intakes and the duration. Actually, STPM is also like they didn't take too much of your time because they only 18 months long for you to finish up your STPM, and you only have one intake each year, which is in May, and you will last until November the following year. For example, if you join STPM in May 2021, then you will finish your STPM in November 2022. Then you will receive your STPM results in the upcoming March, which is March 2023. Okay. Moving on to the next part is minimum requirement. Actually, for this STPM, they don't have any application process. You just need to have a compulsory credit in Malay language and pass in history. If you have these two minimum requirement, you completely have your place to be one of the STPM students. Okay, okay. Last but not least, from me is the exam structure. Since the new STPM format that being introduced in 2012, so the new STPM core curriculum are being separated into 3 parts, and each parts will be taught in each term. So total terms for the STPM they only have 3 terms. Then the examination will be held each term, and result will be released at the end of each term respectively. So it was like if you at the end of your term you will have your examination, then you will get your result automatically. You will get result after you finish up all of your exam. Then, so what are the exam format for the STPM? They have 2 types of format, which is school-based assessment and centralized examination. For school-based, they will take up 20 to 40% of final score, while for the centralized examination, they will take up 60 to 80% of your final score. So the school-based assessment, they include project work, field work, and practical work. While for the centralized examination, they will include multiple choice, structure, and essay question. Same with like the other courses. STPM also use subject grade point or SGP in their result, and it's also the same with the others. If you get 4.00 or 4 flat, it will be the highest SGP among all of the students. Okay, so Olivia will continue for the next part.
Hello everyone, I'll continue with the English certification for STPM. As you can see from the logo in the slide, the English certification for STPM is MUET, which is Malaysian University English Test. So the result validity is 5 years, and the cost for the test is 101 ringgit. And there will be 4 tested sections, which is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And all these sections hold the same weightage of the final score, which is 25% each. That means students are expected to do well for each section. And MUET is only accepted by local public universities and also some universities in Singapore. So if you are planning to go overseas, you will need maybe SPM 1119 English or TOEFL or IELTS. Moving on. For the grading system for STPM, as you can see, the highest is 4.0. And the one I circle in red is the bare minimum to enter local public university, which is 2.0. For different universities, they have different requirements for the SGP, but for science subjects, normally you'll need 3.0 and above. Next. So this is the grading system for MUET, which is band 1 to band 6. But for starting this year, they will change band 6 to band 5 plus, and the overall score will be 360 instead of 300. And for the footnote, the minimum MUET requirement will be increased according to your field of study. For example, if you are planning to take arts and social science, it will be band 2, STEM courses will be band 3, and also band 4 for your law and medical courses. Next. So why choose STPM? So the advantages are STPM, you will not need any fees, which means you do not have to pay any tuition fee for your course. But of course, there's some fees like exam fees, which only cost about a few hundred. And you have more time to consider about your future pathway, which is 1.5 years, if you are still uncertain about your ambition or your career choice. And STPM is accepted both locally and internationally. And if you are unsatisfied with your result, there's always an opportunity to retake. And the disadvantages for studying STPM is it takes a longer duration compared to other pre-U courses. And the syllabus are more compact and you have limited time to learn. And because it's like cramping Form 4 and Form 5 in 6 months. Yeah, next. So I recommend STPM for those who still need time to consider about their tertiary education or career pathways, and those who aim to enter local universities. However, do take note, if you want to get your desired course, and especially science courses, you need to get a good SGP. And for those who aim to study overseas, but you want to save some money on pre-university education, STPM is for you also. And also for those who are cost conscious, because it costs less than 1,000, it only needs a few hundred for like exam fees or some miscellaneous fees. Next. So since there's still 2 minutes left, I will talk a bit about my personal experience for studying Form 6. So Form 6 is, besides the compact syllabus, you still need to join co-curricular activities because it takes up about 10%. And also you need to complete assignments because assignments is part of your mark. And also you need to have extra class. So time management is very important. Therefore, consistent study is also very important. Last minute revision normally won't work for STPM. And also be active in asking your teacher's question. If you don't understand what your teacher is teaching, it's better if you consult your friend or you consult tuition teacher. And also, I think is take good care of your health, physical and mental, regular meals, sleeping, and also find ways to release stress so that you will not feel too stressed because of STPM. And I think that's all for our sharing. And if you have any question, feel free to ask during the Q&A session. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Afifa and Olivia. Next, we have Kazia and Jessica to talk to us about matriculation.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kazia, and I will be sharing about Matriculation Malaysia. So next. What is matriculation? Well, matriculation is a pre-university program offered by the government is a local public pre-university program by KPM. The purpose is to ensure the development of the potential of Bumiputra students, to qualify them to further their studies at the local and also overseas universities. Even though this is mainly for the Bumiputra students, however, the KPM also opens up 10% for the non-Bumiputra students like Chinese and Indians to follow this program. So just for information, this 10% is equivalent to like around 4,000 students. Yeah. And next, the most frequently asked question is matriculation recognized worldwide? The answer is not really, but there are some overseas universities that recognize Malaysian matriculation, such as Australia, UK, New Zealand. And starting this year, Kyoto University, that is in Japan, have officially recognized a matriculation as well. All right, next. What are the courses offered in matriculation program? There are mainly 4 courses and with some compulsory subjects. Let's go into detail one by one. So the first is the science stream. Under science stream, you'll have 3 modules. The first one is life science, and the second physical science, and the third one is computer science. And under the life science, the subjects that you have to take are the mathematics, the chemistry, the biology, and physics. It's like a pure science concept. And whereas the physical science, you don't take biology, but you take physics. You take computer science instead. Whereas the computer science, you don't take physics, but you take biology and computer science. And take note of the minimum requirement of SPM. The requirements are not high. You don't need to get straight A+ to get into matriculation. You just need C, B, and Lulus. Yeah. So next, about accounting stream. Accounting stream, the subjects that you have to take are mathematics, accounting, economy, and also business. And something to be taken note of is, starting this year, AUSMAT in SPM is not compulsory for applying this course, because as in the previous years, you do need to have a SPM AUSMAT result to apply for this accounting stream. However, this year you don't need that anymore. So just to take note of, something to take note of. And next, the engineering stream. So there will be 4 modules under this stream, namely mechanical engineering, electrical and electronic engineering, general engineering, and basic engineering. And the subjects that you have to take under this course are the mathematics, chemistry, physics, and the engineering courses that you pick. All right, next. Lastly, the professional accounting. So you might be wondering, what's the difference between the professional accounting and also the accounting that I just talked about just now? So the main difference is you only learn about accounting under this professional accounting, whereas you still need to learn about other subjects such as economy and also business under the other accounting stream. So you can see here the subjects that you have to take under this course is mathematics, financial accounting, management accounting, and also accountant in business. Do take note that you need a higher requirement, which is you need 3 A's. You need 3 A's for your SPM at least, and the others are C's and Lulus. So next, and the compulsory courses are the subjects that you have to take throughout the program, which are the English, the general studies, the moral, the Pendidikan Islam, and the core curriculum. All right, next. So how long is matriculation? So as for the accounting stream, it's 1 year. It's only 1 year. And so for the science stream, it's either 1 year or 2 years, depending on your result, your SPM result. If you have a good result for SPM, you'll be given 1 year program. Whereas if you didn't score well in SPM, you'll be given 2 years program. And whereas the professional accounting and also the engineering stream, it's 2 years. And that's all for me.
Okay, so I'll take over now to talk about the second part to share about the matriculation program. If you guys cannot hear me clearly, please just raise a hand or something. So I'm going to talk about the exam structure right now. This is actually quite a huge contrast to other pre-U. As you can see here, 60%. You see the term here is written in BM because it's like that in matriculation for local matriculation. So this is continuous assessment, 60%. So the final exam, the weightage is only 40%. It's not that much, and you can look at the details on what is under continuous assessment. UPS is something like quizzes and tests. Normally you have 3 UPS per semester, and in each UPS you'll be tested on 3 topics usually. And yeah, I think that's it for exam structure. So it's 40% of exam is based on written paper, but you don't have to worry much about that since if you do well in your assessment, I think you're pretty fine lah. So yeah, next slide please. So I'm going to talk about the grading system. It's in BM also because everything is in BM in matriculation for local one. And for the first table is actually for your main subjects. I'm a science stream student, so it's like bio, physics, chemistry, maths. And for the second table is actually for compulsory subjects like English, general studies, moral, and also COCU. COCU is co-curriculum. Okay, next. Okay, so the English certification that everybody is required to sit for is MUET as well, same as STPM. And yeah, we actually didn't pay for MUET paper for my batch because it was included in the registration fee. So not much to talk about. This is pretty much the same. So next. Yeah, you can see the fee is quite a contrast to other PU. You only pay once for your whole course. I'm not sure about the 2 years course, but I'm taking the 1 year program, and it cost me around 600 only. And I only pay once. I don't have to pay for accommodation or tuition fee because the government sponsored us. So that's all for this slide. Yeah, so talk about the advantages of matriculation. This is purely from my own perspective only. I'm not speaking for matriculation itself. And in my opinion, I think it's really short. For my batch, I only spent 9 months here, and I'm going back soon. I mean, yeah, so it's actually less than 1 year. People always say 1 year, but it's actually around 10 months only, because one semester is only around 5 months. And yeah, lower cost, and yeah, because you get exemption from a lot of fees. And when I talk about advantages of communication, because you need to be able to speak multiple languages in order to survive in local matriculation. So yeah, forced to learn. So I think that is an advantage actually. Okay, so next slide. Other perks. Actually, this is supposed to be for disadvantage, but I try to turn it around to consider it as other perks. Yeah, forced to be disciplined. Yeah, you have to, forced literally, because I don't have extra time to slack around because, as I said before, the time that I spend here is very short. It's only a few months, 9 to 10 months, 10 months normally. And then, you need to drive yourself to study, because I think that's a challenge for me. And then tougher living conditions, I'm going to be really honest. For my batch, we don't have laundry here. We don't have Dobby service because due to the pandemic situation, it's a bit unhygienic to have commonly shared Dobby service. So Sorry. Can Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought that someone can hear me. Sorry. I'm back to the last one. So you don't have laundry service. You don't have aircon as well. And you cannot choose your own room. Every room is 4-in-1. 4-in-1. I repeat, 4-in-1. So okay, for this slide, you should join this program if you are aiming to enter public university. Yeah, for me myself, I mean, you just have to suffer less than 1 year to enter your ideal uni. I mean, rumor has it that students from STPM or SPM or local foundation have a higher chance or higher acceptance rate into public uni, but that's just rumor. I think if you do well, you can get into any uni that you want. And yeah, the fast and secure link. And also, if you want to be a matriculation lecturer, there's this program called PPC. You get sent to study overseas for a degree in countries like Australia, New Zealand, UK, and then you're bonded to the government for 8 years prior your graduation. And yeah, I think that's it. So tips to Excel. I think you guys can pretty much understand all these except for the fine interpersonal skills. Okay, this is only from my perspective. I think that if you can speak Chinese, you can have Chinese friends. If you can speak BM, that is a real advantage because 90% of people here speak Malay. And if you can only speak English, you will be, I don't know, it's hard to survive. And yeah, I think that's it. Perseverance, as in I have friends who actually drop out of matriculation because of the tough living conditions itself. And it's pretty hard to survive it requires a lot of independence. So you just have to focus that this is less than 1 year. If you want to study matriculation, if you think you're suffering at the moment, just think that, yeah, just have to suffer for 1 year and then you can enter your desired uni. Okay, next. This is talking from my own perspective, so it's hectic but fruitful. Well worth the time and money because I only have to pay 600. And also, I forgot to include this in the advantage, but we receive allowance every month from the government as well. So I think that's a really huge upside to matriculation, local matriculation. And yeah, I think I'm left with one slide only, right? Okay, so these are two important links or websites regarding matriculation and the Ministry of Education Malaysia. So can you take note? And I think that's all from me for part 2 of matriculation. Thank you. I'll pass the time back to.
Yep. Sorry, just cut you off there. Really sorry. But yeah, that was really informative. I think we had a lot of responses which were asking questions about matriculation. So we hope that you found that helpful, like just to give you a brief idea of what matriculation is like. And so thank you, Keziah and Jessica, for that. Next on our agenda, we have Sean and Voon to talk to us about SACE or AUSMAT.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're with us physically and also mentally in front of the computer at least. So today, Sean and I will be presenting to you about SACE and also AUSMAT. Yeah. So just a quick introduction. I'm Voon and I did my AUSMAT. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I'm Sean. I'm actually in my second year of English and Media, currently studying in the UK, and I graduated in 2018 doing SACE, or South Australian Certificate of Education, something like that, in Taylor's College.
All right, cool. So what is actually SACE or AUSMAT? So Sean, you've mentioned that it's called SAM, right?
Yeah,
and for AUSMAT,
we call it SAM back in the days, yeah.
For AUSMAT, it's Australian Matriculation, or in other words, they also call it WACE, which is Western Australian Certificate of Education. So between these two, they are governed by two different bodies. For AUSMAT, it's by the western side of Australia, and for SACE, it's by the southern side. Yep, and without further ado, let's move on to the next slide. So when can one enroll for SACE actually, Sean?
Well, it depends on the uni that you're going into. So some uni, they have January intake, April intake, August intake. And it really is dependent on the provider of the program. So like, as you can see in the slides here, Taylor's College, MCKL, Intech, Inti, and Sunway as well, right? They have AUSMAT and SACE because that's where Voon comes from.
Yeah, I did my AUSMAT in Sunway, and
Yeah.
the intakes were basically January, March, but now changed to April because SPM was delayed, July, and also August, if I'm not mistaken. And the period is usually between 10 to 12 months. So let's say once you're done with SPM, you could take this April intake and sit for your exam in November. That's only like 9 months. Yeah.
Right away.
It's an accelerated program, so everything will be cramped. We can talk about that a little bit more later. So you now might be wondering where you could further your studies using either WAIS or AUSMAT. From this map, you could see that it's everywhere around the world, but the most obvious one is Australia because the certificate is from Australia itself. But other than Australia, you could also go to New Zealand, Canada, the USA, the UK, or even Germany. So in fact, I'm studying in Germany right now. Yeah. And what about local? Sean?
Yeah, I have a few friends who did SAM and they actually stayed back in Taylor's uni. Some of them are in HELP doing psychology or stuff like that. And yeah, actually it looks like you can apply to everywhere, not just like Australia.
I see, yeah. And I've also known a few friends who went to Monash University doing medicine using AUSMAT, but the requirements for certain subjects varies from colleges to colleges or from unis to unis. So for example, you could practically use AUSMAT to study medicine in Monash, but the minimum requirement is very high. So like you gotta get an 8 out of 96, yeah. And so on. All right, now let's move on and see what subject combinations one could do. Sean, how's it in WAIS?
SACE.
SACE, sorry.
For my subject combo, I didn't know what I wanted to do at first. I thought I was going to come out as like someone doing science. So I took like the basic one, which is English, math, biochemistry, and psychology. So that's like the easiest subject combo as compared to the others. But of course, the others wanted to do something related to engineering or like more technical stuff. So your subject combo depends on what you want to do after. But of course, you have the compulsory subjects, which are English and maths. And yeah, what about yours, Voon?
It's the same, more or less the same, basically. So the mandatory subjects are English and also math. And one will have to take 5 subjects in WAIS. And out of the 2 mandatory subjects, that means 3 left. So in my case, in Sunway, there were 2 options. So there was A and also B. We could either take 5 ATA subjects. We'll explain what ATA subjects are in a bit. 5 ATA subjects, or I could take 4 ATA subjects and 1 general subject. And next, please. So for these ATA subjects, it is the subject that is counted towards the certificate or towards my total marks. So I could take, let's say, 2 math, 1 English, 1 physics, and also 1 psychology. Or I could take 4 ATA subjects and 1 general subjects, which means English, I could do double math, I could take 1 physics, and also 1 general computer science.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to have computer science in your pre-uni time, and it doesn't count to your final grade.
Fortunately, it doesn't. All right, let's move on and we can talk about that. Yeah. So about this course assessment, in AUSMAT, it's 50% coursework and also 50% exam. And like what I mentioned earlier, only only the top 4 ATA subjects will be taken into consideration. So your 5th subject, meaning the subject that you perform worst, wouldn't be taken into consideration. So your marks will still be great. Yeah. And how's it in WAIS? SACE?
SACE is a bit different, I guess. We have 70% coursework and 30% exam. That means, when you come into the course, you just have to be ready for it. You cannot be like, let me not study for like 2 weeks. Nah, you have exams in every 2 weeks, every week kind of thing. So we will have quizzes and reports and presentations and a lot of that. And as you can see in the grading system there, it says that they'll take 100% of your 4 best subjects and 50% of your weakest. So if maths was my weakest, so they'll just take half of that and calculate the ATAR from there. Yeah.
So in our case, it's only 4. Yeah. And on to the next slide. So like what we mentioned, in my case, which is AUSMAT, there'll be 50% coursework, which is internal, and 50% external. So this internal exam is like, it's comprised of quizzes, or you could do essays or presentations. It depends on what your lecturers want you to do. And it's all internal and also class tests. And it happens almost weekly or monthlies for sure. And there'll only be one big external exam at the end of the year. What about SACE?
Same thing. It's just that our final exam is only 30% of the entire grade. So not a big impact, but yeah, same idea.
Cool. And how much does it cost to like study SACE?
Ooh, cheaper than A levels apparently. As you can see in the estimated fees down below, you can see how much Taylor's, MCKL, and INTI offers. But of course, I think Voon, you were on scholarship as well, right?
Yep. And the cheapest is around 17K, if I'm not mistaken. It ranges up to 27K. Yeah. And let's move on. So just to wrap it up, should you take AUSMAT or SACE or not? If you would like a pathway which is fast because it's only 10 months, and if you could juggle your time well, and if you could manage your time well because of all these internal exams, then go for it.
Yeah, I would say that like if you may be a person that's not good with time management, you come into this course and maybe you didn't get a very good grade, but 2-3 years down the road, you will actually pick it up easier and faster than the rest of your classmates who took. Okay, I'm not gonna mention anything, but yeah, you will slowly be able to multitask and take up more pressure and stress at the same time.
The internal exams actually occur quite frequently, right?
Yeah. But so
Like-
you just have to be ready, and yeah.
It depends on the lecturer, isn't it? So sometimes it can be 3 exams in 1 week, or if your lecturer wants to torch you, it could be 4 or even 5 in a week. And I've experienced that. Yeah. And yeah, I think that wraps everything up. So thanks for your attention. And if you have any questions, just keep them until the Q&A session and throw it to both of us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Sean and Voon. That was very interactive and engaging. And I think SACE and AUSMAT definitely sounds like a very interesting course compared to the very boring exam-based pre-U courses. So if that's something that interests you, make sure to ask more questions in the Q&A session later on. Now, last but not least, we will have Zhihao and Mabel to talk to us about the IB.
Hi everyone, I'm Zhihao. And me and my friend Mabel will be presenting about the International Baccalaureate.
And I'm Mabel.
Yeah. So the IB is an international program, and that's why it's recognized globally. So it's not a Malaysian program as well, it's administered from Switzerland. So in the UK, it's considered on par with the A levels, and in the US, it's considered on par with the advanced placement. So you can actually get credit hours for it already. So it's recognized and accepted by universities in the UK, the US, or across Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, Korea, etc., etc. In fact, most countries in the world do accept the IB as an official exam requirement. So the one key thing the key difference between IB and other exam boards is there's no such thing as the grade inflation in IB. So a 40-pointer from the 1980s is considered as hard to get as a 40-pointer nowadays. So moving on, we'll be introducing IB. So Mabel, what are the requirements of IB? Can you take us through this?
Okay, so actually for IB, you will have 3 cores and also you have to study 6 subjects. So there are 3 cores include the study of theory of knowledge, TOK, and you have to also complete 1 extended essay, EE, and you have to participate in CAS. So in your 6 subjects, you will have to study 3 HL and 3 SL. So the HL subjects is like higher level subjects, which comprises of 240 hours of lecture, which you will study in greater depth and breadth, compared to the SL subjects, which is usually 150 hours only.
Okay, so maybe we'll take you through the main courses later, the 3 core courses. I'll be talking about the subjects that we study. So we divide them into 6 groups. So group 1 will be studies in language and literature. So in this, you have 2 main types in multiple languages that are available as well as English, Malay, and Mandarin. In fact, there are more subjects if you really want to. So this will be your main language and your master language. So you can take literature, pure literature, or language and literature, which is 50% language, where you study about how language is used in our modern day society, and then 50% of literature. So moving on, we'll have group 2, which is language acquisition. So in this one, it's a second language. So in this one, there are more languages you can take up. You can take up either English, Malay, Chinese, French, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, etc., as well. So the first one here is language B. So this is for people who already speak a second language. So say like you want to do Malay with English, right? Or you can have English A, Malay B, or other way around, Malay A and English B. Or if you want to learn a new language, say like you really like French and you want to study French, right? You can do a language ab initio. So what it is you start to learn a language from scratch. But keep in mind that it is just for SL. So moving on for group 3 will be individual societies. So these are your typical humanities subjects. So in IB, there's a very long list of subjects under this category, and we wouldn't be able to list everything. So here is a short list of business management, economics, geography, global politics, history, information technology in a global society, and the list goes on and on and on. You can find it on the IB website if you want a full list. Keep in mind that not all schools will offer all the courses as well, so you need to be aware like what courses that your school will provide. Okay, we're moving on to group 4, so it's the sciences. So the main ones that is offered are the 3 main ones: biology, chemistry, physics. And some of the more unique ones is like computer science. There's something called design technology as well. Yeah, that's the sciences that IB does offer. So moving on, we'll have group 5, which is mathematics. So in IB, there are 2 kinds of math that are available. There used to be further math, but they scrapped it as of this year. So the 2 maths that they still provide is what we call AI and AA. AI, applications interpretations, and AA, analysis approaches. So what's the difference between these 2 maths? So actually they're pretty much the same, but like AA, there will be a more focus on calculus. There's more focus on numerical algebraic approaches as well. So in some ways, AA is slightly harder because it's more conceptual compared to AI. So the last group is group 6, which is the arts. So under the arts, there are 5 that IB offers: dance, music, film, theatre, and visual arts. But if you really don't want to do this, like these 5 subjects, right, you can of course choose to substitute it with a group 3 or group 4 subject. So group 3 once again is individual society, and group 4 is another science. So we'll move on. We'll let Meryl talk about IAs.
Okay, so IA is actually your internal assessment, and actually takes up a significant percentage in your IB subjects, especially if you're interested in getting a 7. But actually for different just now groups that you have talked about, your weightage should actually be different. So types of IAs available is oral work in languages, field work in geography, and a laboratory work in the sciences, investigations in mathematics, and also artistic performances. But all of these actually depend on the subjects and the groups that you're actually taking. Okay, and then this one also one of the three course in IB, which is the extended essay EE. It is a 4,000 words research paper, and at the end of it, you actually have to write 3 reflections with your supervisor. Like every time, you only have 3 times to actually meet up with your supervisor and to consult. And then with the final one being a viva voce. Next. Okay, the next one is theory of knowledge, TOK. And for now, the new syllabus, you actually have to do 2. Which is the first one, which is your exhibition, and also an essay which comprises of 1,002 to 1,600 words. And usually this will be done in your IB year 2, which is a prescribed title 6 months. This one will usually be like externally, for your exhibition will actually be internally assessed by your teacher. Next. And this is the last core, which is although it is not actually like formally assessed, but it is an important core in your IB also. And CAS is actually creativity, activity, and service. So creativity is actually the arts and other experiences that involve creative thinking. And the activity is physical exertion, contributing to healthy lifestyle, complementing academic work, also in the DP. And service is an paid and voluntary change that has a learn for rights, dignity, and also you would need to go for CAS, and after that you have to write reflections. And you also have to take down photos and videos, which will be your CAS evidences. And in your reflections, you actually have to write on 7 learning outcomes, which is on the slide. And in CAS, formally assessed, is one of the 3 core elements in the IB, and counterbalance the academic pressures in the IB itself.
So we talk about the grading system in IB. So your internal assessment and the final exam, and also the other external assessments, they'll add up to a score. We grade it from 1 to 7, with 7 being the best. So the higher the better in IB. So you have 6 subjects. So 6 times 7, you get 42. From the core, from TOK and EE, you are graded, and depending on your grade combinations, whether it's A and A or B, or so on and so forth, you get a bonus points of up to 3. So at the end or you get a maximum point possible of 45. And 45 pointers are really rare on earth. On average, they're only around 50 to 60 per exam session. So yeah, it's one of the hardest points to get up, 45. Moving on, we'll be talking about why to choose IB. So first thing of IB is critical thinking. So as Mabel has said, right, there's the TOK component. So you really force you to think about knowledge from a grander perspective instead of just accepting information and just spitting out in the exam. That's not what IB wants to do. And it's a balanced program. As we know, 6 subjects in all different fields. You need to be balanced in all of them in order to score well in IB. There's still CAS as well. You have to fulfill as well. And it's compulsory. So it's a more holistic approach of education program. And lastly, the IB is recognized worldwide, like what I mentioned earlier in this presentation. So next, we'll pass this to Mabel and let her talk about what kind of people are suited for the IB program.
All right, thank you. So you are actually suited if you're an all-rounder, means that you have to, like just now we have 6 subjects, right? And in those 6 subjects, you cannot run away from sciences or you cannot run away from the arts. So you have to be good in both, and you also have to take up linguistic subjects. So that makes you an all-rounder itself. And besides that, you also have your CAS, right? So this actually helps you to, you have to be able to like balance your time. And furthermore, in the IB itself, you have to be able to multitask because you have a lot of things going around, and you can, for example, you can have your deadlines for your IAs like this week, and the next week you may be able to have your mock exams around the corner. And then you are suited if you are up for the challenge, because the DP itself is challenging. Alongside with 6 subjects, you have to be able to finish 6 IAs, which actually equivalent to 6 courseworks. And besides that, you also have to finish your CAT. Next one is you have to be able to be creative and inquisitive. Next. And if you're not suited, if you tend to be academic based, because like just now already explained like why it is not suitable. And then the next one is if you only want to focus on a few subjects, because in IB you have 6. Next. And if you want the fastest route to degree, because IB is 2 years.
We're talking about personal experience. So I did my IB in Singapore in Anglo-Chinese School Independent. So here you can clearly see that I have 4 to 5 hours sleep. So actually it's different. So remember, can you tell us like what kind of, like boarding program that you stayed in? Mabel?
Okay, so for me, because I'm under Mara scholarship. Yeah. Okay, here. Yeah, all right. So because actually I'm under Mara scholarship, that's why I'm studying at your college, Mara College Manting. And usually because my boarding school is like I cannot go out from Monday to Friday. So that means that I am only able to go out during weekends, which actually make it quite a full boarding school.
I see. So basically my school is actually just a normal school, like as like any other school in Singapore. So like after school I tend to go out a lot. I tend to go to buy coffee from Starbucks or bubble tea. So that took up some time. So that's why I only have 4 to 5 hours of sleep a day. But I would say like IB is still a good experience for me, because I got a lot of opportunities that I would not have been possible if I had tackled like say the A-levels instead. So I went overseas to do my CAS, but I went to Vietnam to help out the village kids. So I was able to do a field research. So my field research is my econs EE. So I investigated how the government program is effective in correcting market failure of overall consumption. So that was my pride of my entire IB journey, because I was graded an A for it with a score of 31 or 34. So at the end of it, I took my exams last year in November, and my final grade was 42 out of possible 45. So I'll pass it to Mabel to talk about her experience stuff so far. Keep in mind that Mabel is still in the IB and she's only going to take the exam in May this year. Mabel?
Okay, so for my experience, I would like to talk about my class, especially because I'm also doing it like at a more rural area, and actually teach me to actually become caring and compassionate. And besides that, because of my EE, I'm able to do a research work, and that actually gives me the opportunity to be able to work in a lab with chemists also. And along with that, it helps me to become a lifelong learner, because in IB, you have to ask why. And also because of the IB is very strict with like plagiarism. And that means that everything I have to like rephrase from it. Like for example, I read from a book and to rephrase it to put it in my coursework itself.
So finally, we'll be talking about tips for if you're interested in the IB. So first thing is don't waste your time on do last minute work. Speaking of personal experience, it's not a very not good idea. So for 4 or 5 hours of sleep, if I did last minute work, it can go down to 0. Okay, so don't do that. Just don't. Okay, so the second tip is do a lot of past year papers. So IB has 2 exam sessions a year, and for the May exam session, there are 2 time zones. So 1 year you have 3 sets. So if you do a 10-year series, you get to do 30 sets of exam papers, which is more than enough practice for the paper itself. And also there's a database that goes all the way back to the 90s. So you can do questions on it. and you have to prepare for the final exam. So the other tip is don't over involve yourself trying to fulfill CAS, because time is money lah. So one quote that I really like is that IB is not a sprint but a 2-year marathon. So it's not like the rest whereby there's a final exam and we just study for it, but for the whole 2 years you have to really keep everything in check. Yeah. So that's all for IB, and really thank you for listening in, and I'll pass this back to the Joanna to talk about how the key organization will work.
All right, I think we have just ended right on time. A big thank you to all of our speakers. And with that, we have come to the end of the first session of this workshop. There's still another session. We're still not really done yet. But here on the slide here, you'll see that this is just a very brief summary of all the courses compared side by side. You see on the very last column, there's a foundation there. We didn't talk about foundation in like uni specifics or foundation courses because they vary too much across institutions. So you have to do your own research because a lot of the criteria are very uni specific. So we can't give like general information about that. But it's not a lot, this table, but it's something to sort of get you started with. And again, if you want access to these slides, that wouldn't be a problem at all. We will send them to you soon. And it would also be available on our Facebook page, perhaps, I think probably in a few days. Now, we will take a 5-minute break. Meanwhile, if you have any questions that are not really related to any specific pre-uni course, we will try to address them when you come back from the break. You can put them in the chat right here in the main room. And while you take your break, you can use that time to sort of think about what are the questions that you want to ask about maybe 1 or 2 specific pre-uni courses. And another thing is, while we go for a break, you don't have to leave this Zoom meeting, just stay on here. Yeah, so it is currently not 9 o'clock. It's currently 4:21 p.m. We will see you back here at around 4:26. Yep, so go and take a break, and I'll see you back here in around 5 minutes.